Okay, so I've shortened the driver's side spindle arm. So I think I'll put a bit more of a kink in the end of the arm, the wiper, maybe extend it a bit depending on which wipers, blades I use, but I think that should do the job nicely. It could actually go down to about this angle, but then you just miss the edge of the glass. But yeah, there's a lot of fiddling around with the mechanism. I had to adjust the length of the linkage rods as well inside extend it by 15mm so it didn't over travel them, because when I first did it, it over traveled and snapped the spindle arm off. It was only tacked, but yeah. Okay, I've got a bit sidetracked. So I've taped the fuel flap onto there. It's a roll of, I think it's 200g carbon. It's only polyester resin. It's not going to be exposed. Well, I might leave the underside exposed so when the flap is up, it's all black, but the top's going to be painted. Hence, I'm not too fussed about it being an overlay sort of moulding rather than making a mould and then laying it into the mould, which I suppose might be better. I'm just experimenting to see if it's light enough weight. I'm pretty sure it will be. 3 layers of that is pretty thin. So as long as it's body workable, that will be a bit of a novelty when you lift the flap and see some carbon. The original was 150g, so 61g. I'd say that's a pretty decent win. And that was just laying up on top of the other piece. And then I've wet sanded to get the texture of the resin out at the top. Don't know what I'll do with the back, but I guess I'll glue this on and see how it works. Just opened it up and adding a bit more glue, but that certainly improves the opening and closing. The only thing that might be a factor is the amount of glue I'm going to need. Yeah, happy with that. So it's got a nice speed of opening and closing. So just open it again. So you can see there's a fair gap. I see around here that will need to be filled. So I'll probably build up a little wall so I don't end up filling the whole thing with glue. But yeah, nice amount of clearance above the body at the top. And yeah, and no wobbliness of the charge port. Right, to build up that wall between the new carbon skin and the flap, I've just made a little wall out of cardboard covered in packing tape, and then I'm just going to make a little sort of flange that sits on top, and then I will trim that down to size and then just bond it along the top of the wall just with a nice fillet onto the bottom of the flap that's sitting there. But I was going to do it in carbon, but the carbon's just not flexible enough. This is just nice thin chop strand mat, so that'll do the job. Let that go off and then cut it down to nothing. Okay, so this filler piece is now trimmed down. So it's a bit scrappy around the edge, but I'll put a fillet of adhesive all the way around, and that should do that job. But that should keep it nice and light and one-handed. fits pretty nicely. I'll glue some sticks or something to the outer surface to hold it in the right sort of position, flush with the outside. There's a little bit of allowance for glue. But yeah, that should be nice and light and fill the gap. Just try and hot glue, but these little blocks just glued onto the surface worked really well. That's just nice and perfectly flush. So I'll let that dry, see how it looks underneath. Right, that's it, hot glued in position. Fraction high up there, but as I say, hot glue just for a test fit. I probably won't do it permanently until the I get onto bodywork, but you can see that. Hopefully you can see that fillet piece. That'll be a lot nicer, just with a skim fillet, make it look nice. And don't like doing this, but there you go, closed again. Right, it's mostly thinking this week. So framing out the boot area, obviously I need to maintain access to the charge port and everything, and obviously I need to weather seal it out. I need to close in the bottom there, have something reasonably structural coming off the end of these shotguns to, well, for protection for the rear and also to mount the rear bumper. On this side, so that's dropped a little bit. This is the Model 3 boot hinge, which I've sort of flattened out to make a bit more generic. That cantilevers up nicely. The other side has got the motorised actuator. That's right, this one hand's getting a bit messy. The boot latch and the boot. So this is the boot lift button with the camera. So I think I'm going to have to keep that in the standard position, so horizontal. So I'm going to mount that into the bottom of the boot lid. Obviously then I need the boot catch. Sorry, and for this handle, I'm going to have to put like a little bit of a recess, like a finger recess in there to get in. And obviously clearance for the camera. For all the autopilot and parking features, the lines and stuff, I think the camera needs to stay at that weird angle, not just poking straight out like I've seen some others do. Then here's the latch, the boot latch. So normally that lives inside the boot, so the lid, that way up. And then there's just a simple catch. I think I'm going to try and mount this the other way up, like that, and then hang it off the frame that comes around the back. It might well have to be offset a little bit. It's quite heavy with that actuator, because obviously you've got the electric release actuator that works in conjunction with the strut, actuator strut there. It's obviously on the other hinge. And then, yeah, I'm thinking I need to maximise the space. I'd like it to be removable, because obviously my body's going up and down like a yo-yo at the moment, and it will be for a while. I also want to build in some structure around the base of the rear screen there, and all the mounting points. I'd like to hide that compressor either by moving it up there in that sort of dead space. That might be quite useful actually, to maintain this huge boot. But yeah, I think I'm going to lose the sides just because of the hinges. They're quite chunky. Yeah, and you can see just lots of pondering time